Where it started was I initially found a lump in my right breast. It was the start of April 2019. And so, I always kind of said if there was, you always kind of know if there's some things you'll follow up on immediately and there's other things you'd let go. And I always kind of thought, okay, if I ever found a lump, I'd just get it checked out straight away. So that was a Friday night. And so the Monday then I went to my GP and I showed it to her and she was like, yeah, you're very young, but I'll still forward you for assessment just in case. So I was delighted. Then on the following Friday, I had gotten an appointment with the Bonds in the St. Monica's breast unit there. And I met Mr. Martin O'Sullivan and they did mammogram, ultrasound and biopsy of the lump. So he then said 2 weeks for the result. And I kind of asked him straight out. I kind of said, is there, what do you think, in all of your years of experience? And he kind of said, I really can't tell. It's a 50-50 situation. He said, sometimes we can, and genuinely sometimes we can't tell. So we had to wait for the biopsy. So hence the longest 2-week wait of my life began. And then 2 weeks later, on the 26th of April 2019, I was back with Mr. Sullivan, and he said, yeah, unfortunately, it is breast cancer. So he said it's called triple negative breast cancer. So it's one of the more aggressive forms of breast cancer. I suppose up until that point, I wouldn't have had any information or any knowledge regarding different types of breast cancer. I suppose as far as I was concerned, it was just one type and that was it. But whereas he kind of explained, he said, it is a more aggressive form. He said with the triple negative, he said there's no hormone input at all, whereas normally there probably would be. So he said there was no hormone feeding it. So basically what he meant was, or what he said then was that my understanding of it is that the treatment options are slightly more limited because you can't have there kind of hormone therapies afterwards, like after chemo and surgery and radiotherapy for the regular ones, whereas this one doesn't. It's just a specific chemo, surgery, then radiotherapy regime, and that's it. So that was the type. It was a stage 2 triple negative. So I think kind of from that point we were kind of a little bit scared because I suppose we kind of knew from speaking to them that it was a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more risky, I guess.
And Liz, when you heard the word chemotherapy, were you scared?
I was, I guess. I suppose I was numb really because I suppose I didn't. We were in shock to a certain extent. My husband was there with me when we were getting the results, and Martin O'Sullivan then told me he was going to refer me onward to Dr. Conrad Murphy, the oncologist. So he said it'd be the regime of chemo, surgery, radiotherapy. So I was kind of straight away, okay, fair enough. What should I expect? Because I suppose I didn't have I had very little knowledge, just I suppose, or very little information about what was ahead. And I think it's the fear of the unknown, really. And I suppose at the time I had 2 small children. Well, I suppose they're still small, but they were 5 and 2 at the time. So I was fully in mom mode, and I was that was my sole focus, I suppose, at the time. So it's kind of suddenly we were kind of thrown into this scary, crazy world of cancer, and we didn't know. I think it was the unknown because I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know. I suppose I didn't know if I'd survive. That was probably the main thing, really. And I suppose I was actually terrified to even think of that out, or think of it, or even kind of say that out loud. Because I suppose it was my first time ever where I suppose I had to consider my mortality or something.
Imagine thinking about your future, your life at 38.
And that's the thing. I suppose I was thinking my focus at the time was my 5-year-old was due to start primary school in September. So I was kind of going, yeah, this is my focus. Cara is starting school and she's going to be embarking on this huge momentous thing where she's starting big school and her little sister Grace was starting preschool. So that was my focus. I suppose I was at that point where I was fully I was nearly through the whole nighttime wakings, nappy stages, and myself and Keith, my husband, were kind of nearly patting ourselves on the back for a job well done kind of thing. And then all of a sudden this just kind of, I'm calling it just a bump in the road. So we were kind of just completely thrown, I guess. It just changed the future that we had imagined for ourselves and the girls. And I suppose it was, our lives were completely turned upside down and we didn't know what was ahead of us.
And focusing on your girls, do you think that may have helped you through what you had to go through?
Oh, without a doubt. I suppose I had 16 chemotherapy sessions over 23 weeks. So I suppose that was kind of a lot. And I suppose the side effects then are your typical hair loss, and then you're obviously got fatigue and you're sick and everything. Like there's a lot. I suppose there's a lot of physical side effects aside from the hair loss. And I suppose the girls used to see me, and I suppose we didn't hide it from them. Like we had told them and we had explained it to them. I just kind of explained it to them in a very, very simplified term. The two of us sat down with them one day, and we just kind of said I'd had a port fitted for my chemo, and it was just on the top of my breast. You could see it just the bandage after it was fitted, and the girls were obsessed. They were like, "Oh, Mom, what happened? It's like a boo-boo, so we'll fix it for you." And we'd always make a big fuss of them. So we said, okay, this is an opportunity to tell them. So we said, okay, Mom's got a sore boobie. I said I went to speak to the doctor, and the doctor said he's going to give me some very, very special medicine. We called him Dr. Murphy, so he had a name. He was a real person. And I said he's going to give me some very special medicine, but it's going to make my hair go funny. And I didn't kind of say what funny was. So to them, it could be a good or a bad thing, I suppose. And they kind of just accepted that. And I think even just kind of when I was sick and when I was tired, they always just accepted what they could see. If I kind of got up in the morning and I helped them get ready for school, or we have an incredible childminder who helps us out. So if they were going to the childminders or if they were going to school, if they saw Mom get up with them and kind of help them, even if I was barely able to sit on the sofa or on the stool and kind of sit with them in the morning, they could still see everything was normal and their life was going on. And I suppose that was a really good focus for me, that if I could keep life as normal as possible for them, and obviously Keith helping out and make life as easy for him as possible too, and life just kind of went on and everything just kind of rolled on too, which was kind of, I think that definitely kept me going in the sense that it was a little bit of normality in just this crazy roller coaster we were thrown onto.
So kind of the normalising of the situation you were in helped you go through.
Definitely. And I think with two small children, it's like, okay, Mom might feel a little bit sick today, but hey, I still need a snack. I still need to be brought to school. I want you to do this for me, Mom. Like, so it was a real reality check. And like we went through like vomiting bugs and chicken pox and everything in the house, all while I was going through chemo. So, you know, it was a dose of reality for me too, which was brilliant.
And what about that first day at school for Cara?
And, you know, it was fantastic in the sense that I knew I was there for it and I was feeling relatively good. But it was so emotional, I suppose, because we were after going through, like, it was September and I started chemo in May. So I was nearly finished my chemo. And I was bald as a coot, of course, and I'd had a wig, but I never really wore it around the girls because I kind of said, you know, every time they saw me in the wig, they'd start laughing because they're like, "Oh, look at Mum, she's got her silly hat on." So it was kind of to them like me just going around the house with my bald head like it was the norm. So I had actually said to Cara, I was saying, which would she prefer? It was nearly asking her what would I wear. Like it was like, Cara, which would you prefer? Would you prefer Mom to wear a hat, a cap, or her hair to school today? And she was like, she was kind of thinking, and she was like, "Oh, Mom, I think maybe wear your hair." So I kind of asked her about that afterwards, and she was like, "I just wanted everybody to be looking at me." So she was very funny. Like it was just the norm for them. But kind of for me, having been through 5 months of just intense like cancer treatment, it was so emotional to see her, my big girl, walking in the gate of the school, like, and kind of, she didn't even look back. She just put the hand up and she said, "Bye, Mom, bye, Dad. There you go, I'm off." Like, so it was fantastic. Like, but then it was a lovely break from the drudgery of the cancer treatment to kind of have a lovely day like that, focusing on somebody else.
And Liz, you finally, to the delight, I suppose, of your family and to you, the major relief, you were told that you were cancer-free this year.
It was actually, well, yeah, I suppose my treatment finished this year, but I finished my chemotherapy on the 8th of October last year, and then I had surgery on the 9th of November, and 2 weeks later I got the results of the surgery where they said that there was no evidence of disease in the tissue that they had removed. So then radiotherapy was always still an option. So I finished that. I did that through January and into February this year. So I was finished my treatment right before lockdown, COVID style happened.
And just
so it was.
And in relation to that, because you're immunocompromised and you're now at a higher risk of COVID-19, is that a worry for you now?
I suppose once we heard COVID was in Ireland, in Cork in particular, I suppose myself and Keith just we made the decision. We said, okay, we're going to start isolating ourselves. Obviously, the girls were still in school at the time, so we kind of said, we'll just even ourselves reduce our own contacts and try and control who we see or who we're in contact with, just to try and protect ourselves a little bit. We started doing, I suppose, even before lockdown, we had started doing our online ordering and kind of reducing the shops that we went to and that kind of thing. So the worry was always there. But then obviously as the restrictions eased over the summer, we kind of became a little bit braver too ourselves. But definitely this time, I think as we saw the numbers going up now again, it's that worry just creeps back in, I suppose. I suppose the worry for me that I'm always at risk of something, even just like any kind of regular virus, not even just COVID. I suppose that worry is always kind of there because of my immunocompromised state. And I suppose we're just trying our best, really. I suppose we're kind of reducing again the number of people we see and kind of staying home as much as possible. But the girls don't always agree with that. But they know we're doing it for the right reasons too. It's just hard for them when we look out the window and if they see their friends out on the green and they want to go out and play, and trying to explain that to a now 6 and 4-year-old that coronavirus is there. So Grace, my 4-year-old's favourite phrase is coronavirus says no, Mom. So we're like, yeah, coronavirus says no. So it's tough, but I think we're kind of doing it for the right reasons too.
If I can just go back a little bit, you say that at the beginning, when you were diagnosed, that your treatment options were a little bit more limited. And is that why you've kind of teamed up, or that you're happy to support breakthrough cancer research?
Oh, without a doubt. I suppose the thing is, with the limited treatment, Conal Murphy, the oncologist, he said, the first day I sat in front of him, he said, okay, the treatment options are a little bit more limited because of triple negative breast cancer, but he said that's not to say they don't work. He said a hell of a lot of research and a lot of time and everything has been put into this treatment to make sure it is effective. He said, fair enough, the options aren't there that we may have for different types of breast cancer, but he said these still work and they're proven to work. And when I sat in front of him and he said, we're going for a cure, I believed him. And thankfully, he followed through on it, which I was only telling him last month when I was in for a review with him. But the work that Breakthrough do, I have to say again, I was not familiar with the work that they did until last year. But the work that they do and the investigations that they carry out into them, again, the more aggressive or the more, I suppose, the cancers that are more limited or something, it's phenomenal and it's badly needed. And I suppose this is why they do such amazing fundraisers, and this is why myself and I've got 2 very good friends who have also gone through breast cancer treatment and everything, and we're always very willing. If they ever ask us to do something, we will fully support it because we know how valuable the work they do is.
And
it is incredible.
Would you have been in touch with them throughout your treatment, Liz, or would you have just...
It would have been kind of more towards the end of my treatment. We were approached by them. They did a fantastic afternoon tea, a fundraiser in Fota last January, and they very kindly asked myself and the 2 girls I just mentioned, Helena O'Brien and Mandy Gabriel, they asked the 3 of us if we'd speak at it and just tell our stories. And that was kind of the start of it then, whereas we just even speaking to the scientists that worked there and Orla and Owen and everything, it was just fantastic to know that it's a local charity here in Cork as well, which is amazing. But the work they do is phenomenal, and I just think it's so valuable to have a resource like that. Whereas if I needed any advice, I could always ring them up and kind of say, do you know anything? Is there any information that you might have that I could bring back to my oncologist? they might know of certain developments in relation to the cancer treatment for triple negative, for example, and I could bring that back to the oncologist and see would that be appropriate or applicable for my case. And like having that resource is just fantastic.
And Liz, you said that in April 2019 that diagnosis changed the future that you and Keith had imagined for your whole family, including Cara and Grace. What's that future like now?
I suppose it's a kind of a difficult question, I suppose, because yes, I've gotten the all clear. I suppose that is one good thing. I suppose it's very difficult to still kind of think long term into the future, if that makes sense. Because I suppose like the worry about the recurrence or the worry about this cancer spreading or coming back or something, it can be terrifying and all-consuming. I suppose particularly if I allow myself to think of the what if or the possibilities of the recurrence or a spread. But I suppose you have to kind of get up in the morning, you have to kind of push it to the back of your mind and focus on the here and now. And I suppose like the longer I go out from November last year, it's almost a year now, I suppose. So the longer I move away from that, or the further I move away from that, I'm allowing myself to think more into the future. And now our next big milestone is I turn 40 at Christmas, and Grace starts school September next year. So I'm kind of thinking about all of these things, and I'm kind of thinking ahead to I'm allowing myself. I think that's probably the key, to think ahead to these things and to start looking forward to these kind of things.
So you should have amazing celebrations in your house this Christmas. Whatever the COVID restrictions.
That's exactly it. I'm very excited that you girls who are nearly doing a countdown, for me. For me.